So, this is Calcat, the Calcatster. And, today is between stories. And, we're going to start assembling the 10-episode season. That includes the two-part episodes. Would be 8 episodes, but there's two-parters. Also the movie. Yes, the movie. It was a little short last night when we finally finished production on episode 10, the Cillian Earth one of Chimera, and then realized, you know what? It's not quite done yet. There's a few things that are left unsolved there. There's a few other things. And we don't necessarily want to do a story where it's like we had several other ideas floated around that we didn't use. We were going to have the old crew and the next gen and DS9 commanders show up and do a King's Roundtable. No, save that for something silly like put them in the ready room. Put them in the fake ready room story and have them in there. That's fine. But yeah, having a movie about that's not interesting enough. Movie there. It just so happens that we had completed production on a Distant Destinies story, on a story that was sort of a pared down version of the Andover saga. It's basically the Andover saga. So like this, there's a devastated Earth in it, and the ship shows up to save the devastated Earth, and they're nostalgic and stuff like that on the ship, and it was sort of a pared down version of that. And they go to the Earth after the thing. I can tell you what it's not. It doesn't take place in the 32nd century. That would be silly to go that far off, because then you can't use any of the plot threads you left behind if you go that far off. If you do, like, yet another jump forward again and show something else. No, don't do that. Just have it be a couple months later. That's fine. Have it be on the Chimera. At the end of episode 1, episode 10, Dax reiterates Captain Kirk's speech from Star Trek, the final cruise of the Starship Chimera line, and I thought it would be cool to have, let's show the final cruise of the Chimera under her command, the very last mission of the Starship Chimera. It doesn't get blown up or anything. It's just the very last mission of the Chimera under her command. Let's show that. And it just so happens that there was a story. This ship story is floating around. It's it's not really a bio ship. It's more of a generation ship. They find a generation ship, very similar to in the distant future in Discovery season 3, where they found a generation ship with tail on it and everything. But not really. In this case, it's a bait and switch kind of thing going on, literally. It's silly Trek, so it's sillier. But yeah, I had written this Distant Destinies thing based on the Distant Cousins series from years and years ago. It was going to be a reboot of Planet Com, which became Distant Cousins, which became Distant Destinies. The books are now called Canary Space. And this really isn't canon with Canary Space. When I read the story again, I finished it during the writer's strike. And I read the story now, and earlier, and I was thinking, like, this doesn't really sound like that should be Canary Space at all. This sounds like another Star Trek story, another fun little Star Trek story with the crew, and how hard would it be to rewrite it as the final episode of the Starship Destinations series, until they make more in the future at some point. So yes, final one in Queen Bee Studios. So we have the idea of the story, quickly hammered out a premise, a little teaser thing in the beginning and a little teaser thing on the end, filled in and changed some names around, and they kind of fit as the Chimera names. So not everybody can show up in the movie, but most everybody's in it. They go to a planet where they have to do like Who Watches the Watchers and Insurrection, and pretend like they're part of the planet to meet up with a ship that is controlled by some kind of computer AI robots, sophisticated robots, and they have to control the ship long enough to awaken the thing running the crew, the thing running the ship, the crew or the thing, the creature, and then they can talk to that. So yeah, Star Trek, classic Star Trek idea, sort of the opposite of V'ger in a sense, because it's a little bit like V'ger, except that it's not hostile. Wanted to write a space science fiction story, about 90 minutes originally, or the signal from space kind of thing. Not to be confused with the old signal from space, which wasn't me. But the signal from, and I wanted to have like the Clarkian sort of adventure on a Rama type thing. Whereas the ship is mysterious, Moonbase encounters it, so it's a little bit like 2001, but it's a parody of those. It played more like a parody of classic 60s movies other than Star Trek, but also played like Star Trek. And the curious irony of all of that was that when as Trekkies, back in the day, as a Trekkie, all of for forever, since I was like 3 or something, we were watching the reruns. But yeah, that originally Distant Cousins and Planet Calm before that, and all the stuff before that, it was called Space: The Final Frontier. So it was a Star Trek story. So now it's a Star Trek story again. So yes, 95 minutes. It's just a 2-part episode basically. It should be possible to put this together. And the characters, it's not very many Chimera people in it this time. It's just the one crew, one ship goes there, encounters alien crew, alien ship, does their thing. And yeah, you'll recognize it if you've seen Planetcom 2007, which I don't think you have. That I think there's an online version of it, actually. There might be. And it's not like the Starcrackers one. We're not redoing the Starcrackers one as Silly Trek either. Kind of already did that. Because if you look at the Arbiter of Keptera, that story is, and the other one is, the Keith Kona and the other one are basically Starcrackers anyway, so Space Vanguards. So we've already done it, so we don't need to do it again. We're going to do another one. We're going to crank out another one over the weekend. So, paint the characters up. I mean, look good. For the story, it's a couple of months later in the story. It's a couple of months. It's like, I think the last episode of the 10-parter is November, and now it's February in the story. Even though literally it's filmed like 2 days after the show. Kind of what they did with Star Trek Generations, which is why parts of that are weird. They wanted to tie in Kirk through a Nexus thing and have him die, but they get resurrected in the Nexus thing, and they did this whole convoluted thing with the bridge and all that stuff, and the movie just had a convoluted story. But in this case, it doesn't, because this story was already. This doesn't necessarily tie into the series, but it does tie into the theme. It's one of the Earth-like planets they go to. Finds it all decimated. It's one of the planets, so that's cool. It's a mission. It's a Cillian mission to the planet. It's Captain Dax, Captain Locarno doing one more run. And it's a little bit like Destiny, the Star Trek Destiny. A little bit of that in there. Not the Borg part of it, but definitely the part of it. They're discovering this ancient ship that they found. And then masquerading is very similar. So boiled down to this 96 minutes of awesomeness. And 2 names from that'll become paper towns in the story will be established as also names in Silly Trek, Cassins and Benton. So, and some characters have evolved in those 2 months. Things have changed in those 2 months. The uniforms are slightly different. Just because, sure, it's a movie. The quality will be the same because it's the same cameras. But, I'll try a little harder. But this will be a chance to give Mahoney and... This will be a chance to give Mahoney and Sito and Murol and Dal and Gwendola an episode together so they can hang out in that episode. Yes, Dal and Glenn. Dal is coming back. Dal has a cameo. That would be, of course, the Onward, Star Trek Prodigy kid. Star Trek Prodigy kid. Gwendola and Dal are Star Trek Prodigy. But now they're 20 years older, so They show up 20 years older. Yeah. Yes. We get to see very briefly Tam and Kestra show up in the opening scene. At this point, they're in the rest of the show. They only have a cameo in the movie because we're concentrating more on a Mahoney story, and there's a gag running through the story about Mahoney's alcoholism that is dealt with in the movie. Actually, they dealt with that in the movie. Mahoney is an alcoholic, space alcoholic. That's how an Irish that drinks. Irish that drinks. Oh, okay. But yeah, I make fun of that. 1/4 Irish. I don't drink, but I thought it'd be funny to make fun of that. But I'm 1/4 Italian. I should like either wine or beer. But yeah. Anyway, so okay. Hey, good lager. But yes, yeah. So distant cousins, distant destiny. What did I end up calling this? I guess it's in there, but distant cousins probably. Probably called distant cousins because distant cousins. It probably ties in. That's the name of the episode. Where's the movie? Because that's not being used as Canary Space. This was a rejected Canary Space pilot. This would be a spin-off story where it was originally off in the very distant future, but it decided that as it pertained to the story, and then it decided, no, let's just make this during Chimera mission and have it be them on the planet. Give Mahoney a mission that he can actually solve. Oh, sure, why not? And then they're for the road, yeah, but not booze, because Mahoney went to space 12 steps. But yes, yeah, we're not having necessarily the old crew showing up, although I think we're going to do visual gags might happen like that, but it's not meant to be them. So yeah. Isn't really a feature. Spaceship thing. Yeah, it'll work. We've done it a few times, and this time they're done something like it. We've done something like it a few times, but this one's going to go with they're going to go do this. Yeah, this one's going to do the generation ship is discovered heading for a duplicate of Earth. It could be the planet from the Yangs and the Combs, from hundreds of years from Starfleet. It could be that planet. That's what they didn't say, but it could be that planet. That makes sense. I'm not saying it is. It's just it could be. It's another parallel Earth. And look for the Q cameo at the very end. There's a Q cameo. It's funny. It's very funny. We don't see what happened to Q, but we get what happened to Q. Kirkgod doesn't show up, but something like it kind of happens. Yeah. So, yeah, a Silly Trek episode. We're still doing another one. So. I brought these in from the garage, drying right here. They are the touched up figures for the show. And here's the Chimera cast for the show, and a couple of new characters, some Draconians, Silurians, and Orions. Terminalian one in there. Yeah, so there's more than one Tendi this time. There's a bunch of them. So yeah, do we need to touch up Tendi or not? A little bit. I think you need to touch her up some more. So yeah, yeah, or you can leave it. Anyway, so we have action figures. It's a movie, yeah. October 20th or 21st, one of those. And we're on the set of Starship Destinations, Starship Locations. Distant Cousins is the name of this episode. Distant Cousins. Could be called Distant Destiny, but I think it's called Distant Cousins because that makes more sense. This episode, the the crew will go to a mysterious planet, another one of those duplicate Earths, where mysterious space war occurred, and they get to go there and check it out. A generation ship is on its way there, and that type of thing. I threw this little teaser plug in there. Not even a teaser, just a captain's log. Reminiscent of the captain's log from the end of the last episode, just so you know what to edit. Yeah, this is the crew of the movie era. It is clearly months later, and we will see what they're doing in the movie era of series. Even though we did a Starship Chimera miniseries, 2019, and then launched the series in 2020. And it's been 2 years since we launched that series this month. So, so here we are on the set again, wrapping up the third and final season with a motion picture event. Done with our same cameras. But, yeah, motion picture event. Taken from the story written during the hiatus, during the hiatus strike. They did the Canary Space story, Distant Destinies, Distant Cousins. It was called Distant Cousins. The signal from space. And we decided to use it as a Star Trek. So, kind of fits better as a Star Trek anyway, really. I mean, it's a little too odd and trippy. But yeah, ancient alien things. And yeah, I can say, oh, ancient aliens just copying the History Channel. Actually, or the Silurian guy and the other guy and all that. No, we're not. Actually, strangely enough, again, what the original premise of this was Space of the Final Frontier. Yeah, they ripped off Star Trek. Going back to when I was like 15 or 16. 14 or 15, and then later on 16 for Planetcom, and then later on Distant Cousins when I was in college in 1992, and we were also doing the Star Crackers at the same time as Distant Cousins, Distant Planets, and Distant Journeys, and then we were at the same time Star Cracker. So the whole series was like, okay, we're going to do that. Later on we called it Canary Space when it went up on Amazon. That's what it's called now. And Star Crackers became Space Vanguards USV. But yeah, also on Amazon. So not on the show, in the books, the book form. Same place Cillian Realms can be found as books. We're not doing a book adaptation of this season. There's no point in it because these are follow-up and integral episodes cribbing from the our other stuff we did in Cillian Realms. So really, technically, and some planets from Star Trek. You know, we kind of can't really, like, we would have to get all this ridiculous permissions to even print this up as a book. So it's not going to be a book. Just watch the series all together, and we decided to do one more for the road. And here it is. Here I'm going to start filming a bridge scene, and we're only going to do the bridge scene tonight, and then stop for the evening because it is already late, and we had to have everybody dry. So anyway, the figures were wet. That might sound dirty, but no, it's not. They were repainted. But they look good on the set, and everything looks all right, and they appear to be dry. And we're going to do a take of the bridge set. So we'll have to take some of them off the set that aren't there, and just go with what's the ones that are there. So yeah, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to be filming now. So we're 22 pages into the finale. Well, we did a finale of the show. 10 episodes of the finale of the show on Earth. But there were some threads there were some plot threads that we wanted to kind of wrap up. There was some story we wanted to wrap up. And it just so happens that this Distant Destinies story, the Distant Cousins, probably Distant Destinies is a better title. Distant Destinies. Story was not going to be used for anything, so we'll make it the Star Trek story. Make it the Star Trek movie, that story. We didn't end up doing a story with the original crew. That's a little weird. We didn't end up doing some other adventure where, like, Picard marries Q or something. We didn't end up doing that. We didn't end up doing anything that ends with a wedding, really. And then want to do a number of other, like, ideas thrown around. Let's have some characters have a fleet battle and have some other ships show up, and there'll be, like, 4 of them, and they'll all be happy and all that. And let's just, no. Let's just have it be... Let's use this story, have it be a simple wraparound of a very brief of the Chimera going on her last mission of the 5-year mission. Because the Chimera, when we catch up with the Chimera A, the ship. It's a year or so into their 5-year mission. So now it's 2405, 404, 24, beginning of 2405. This is the end of their 5-year mission. So this is sort of a nod to 5-year missions of and Star Trek 6 in a way. But yeah, so what this basically is the crew going to they've encountered this other Earth, another Earth that's supposed to be Terra Nova. It's not the Terra Nova from Terra Nova from Enterprise. It's another one, and it's another Earth, and there they are in the throes of the from their calendar, they're in the 32nd century, but Earth and Silly Trek around them aren't in the 32nd century. So this planet is pulled from time probably by the events of season 2. And it's not Nepotesia, but it's similar to that planet. And they've gone to this spaceship that's heading there. There's a spaceship, a generation ship headed there, and they go there. They discover that the crew has been killed. The crew on both stations is either gone or dead. Well, they know that the crew on the ship is. They beam over to the ship, and they discover they're dead. So they gotta fix that. It's kind of like in First Contact when Riker and LaForge went on the Phoenix. It's kind of that idea where they're like, okay, we're gonna go in there and play these guys so that we can get the story done because the timeline's been messed up. So they go there to fix the timeline. It's kind of like a temporal timeline thing, but it's not time travel. They're just going there to fix the timeline. So they figure the ship has to get there, and they have to encounter the Earth humans in order for the Wessian to get what his comeuppance. The Wessian in this version is the Wes Wessian, and he's cleaned himself up and he looks better. And the object of the story is for them to get back together with the ship and crew. They know what so the Starfleet people break up into 2 teams. One team goes to the moon base. The other one goes into the other ship. One of them goes to play an improviser character, a sort of alien scout that comes between the two of them. They know what they're playing and what they're doing. It's sort of a play within a play, but it's not convoluted at all. It's just that they're just playing these other characters, kind of like a conundrum episode. Kind of like the conundrum episode. Kind of like also Strange New Worlds has done this a couple times. They've had episodes where people would forget who they were and start playing other characters. We've done that too on Strange Worlds and Chimera and the other ones. We've done that too. So, yeah, we've done that a few times. So, we've done it as well. They also did that with Transformers stories, a couple of conundrum story. Here they haven't forgotten who they are. They know who they are, playing characters. As we learned from that last scene that we just shot with the Space Stoners, they're aware that they are in a story, and they're just high. And Tendi walks up to them and goes, stay in character. Just wanting them to stay in character. Yeah, because there's entities watching or something. Yeah, so they're trying to awaken the AI thing, and the Wessian is playing the AI, the other AI, and there's the other Cassins. So the story that Tom Cassins and Corey Benton, characters who appear later, some of my characters, who appear in the story as paper towns, kind of, they are the person that married Cito Jaxa is another Cassins, who in her timeline, the Cassins family continued on, and so it's a different guy really that she's playing. Yeah, and we don't know his first name. We never find out what his first name is, but she married him, and so he's there and he's on the ship and stuff. We might have seen him in a cameo in the background in some of those other scenes in the other stories. It's possible. I'm not saying we didn't, but we could have. Also, Benton as well. Could be a Cillian. Probably is some sort of a Cillian. Since Cito Jaxa was rescued to that prison planet along with Nick Locarno and all that, and then later on they blew up the prison planet. They destroyed it. So it's not around. Well, that never comes up in this story, but yeah, Cito Jaxa is supposed to be Cito Jaxa, the Lower Decks girl. And we're not the only ones that thought that was like a cheap out in the Next Generation. We weren't the only ones at Starship Chimera. Mike McMahon, who did a show called Lower Decks, was like, yeah, she's alive. Yeah, she got rescued. So there was an episode where there was a first season episode where they showed somebody that looked like her, and then there was a later one where she was captain of a ship and she shows up. It's supposed to be her. So yeah, so he confirmed that. He said, "Yeah, that's supposed to be Cedar Jackson. She's captain." So yeah, the 2380s. In my timeline, she wasn't a captain yet in the 2380s, but that's okay. She was a commander, but yeah, it took a while because she's kind of messed up. It took until 16 years later. But yeah, she's kind of a mess. So yeah, but now she's a little better. Anyway, so well, in Star Trek, people live to be 150 years old. So the first 50 years is only the first third of their lives. Anyway, so yeah, I also did a fun thing with a sort of a aftermath thing, reminiscent of that episode of Voyager, where the Doctor's program was left on a planet, and it was like thousands of years later, and they got all the details wrong. This is kind of similar to that one too. In that little scene at the end with it's a nod to that a little bit. In that we meet up with in that final scene that I filmed this morning. They meet up with Idira Tal, who basically explains my ancestor was Javan Tal, and all this other stuff happened, and eventually her ancestor Javan Tal married Jeremy Astor, and they adopted, and also Miral and Molly had adopted some of the alien children from the base, and stuff like that. So this planet affected them into the future. And the planet recorded all that, this other Earth, this other Starfleet and all that. So this more connects with the post-space burn Star Trek and Discovery. Without actually going into Discovery's future, I do have a Berman and the action figure, the Berman and the other guy, the Berman and Saru. But I didn't want to throw them in there because that would just throw everything off. So I thought, no, just Idira, just her. That's fine, just her and the other two. That way you're still within the confines of the story. You're not changing. You're not throwing in. It would be like if Kirk showed up. It would just throw things off. It's like, okay, you got Kirk here. It's going to be amazing. No, we're not going to do that. There's no Kirk in this. Also, it's funny that the sort of story implied that Holocat and Rumbly, after they got with each other, they destroyed the universe on their planet. They destroyed their planet. They ruined it. This could be this planet. Could be. It doesn't say. It says their planet was destroyed. It says what planet it is, and they just sort of, it's in a time problem happened to it. So maybe that's it. And they're gonna go fix that. But yeah, so it's dusty in here. Anyway, and that was lime juice, but yeah, not any. Yeah, there's no booze on the set. That'd be stupid. But yeah, I kept joking about that thing, and tea and stuff. But yeah, so the characters are doing their own thing. I thought it would be. Originally, the whole premise started off as like Cal Cat Marks Cards ideas about, yeah, how would you do like an Andover prequel story, and then it ended up evolving into this. And all, no, let's do Distant Cousins, Distant Destinies instead. It's kind of the same thing, same idea. It's sort of a generation ship is discovered, and they have to go on the ship and help the crew to be revived and do everything and come back and revive the computer and stuff. It was very Star Trek. Started to do that. Yeah, so the AIs that are still walking around, because they'd be alive, they wouldn't have been killed by the whatever atmosphere problem happened to the ship. And they managed to fix the atmosphere problem, but the biologicals had expired, some of them. But yeah, so they fixed it. But in this case, they're playing the characters that have been verified afterwards. So they're playing replacements for those characters, even though they are sort of them. Obviously, Wessian is not an android. He's just a sophisticated warp sailor who was figured out time and space and can pretend to be an android. But the other ones know who Wessian is, so they're kind of fudging the facts a little bit. They're kind of saying like, okay, yeah, he's the android from the spaceship. so that if any of the space deities that control the planet, the preservers control the planet, are listening, okay, they're following along the timeline correctly. They're imitating the timeline correctly. The discovery of the ship and all that, and discovery of this other Earth that gets saved. And yeah, so we'll give them credit at the end, so to speak. The last minute appearance of the space guy. So yeah, that's kind of the premise of what's going on. It's not terribly convoluted. We have the two control centers next to each other on the soundstage, which is fun, and and just keep switching back and forth. Because it's a bottle show. They don't go to a planet. It's all on a ship. And of course, the spectacular spaceship. I don't know how we're going to animate that. The outside, though, we've got footage from the Robotech things. So just use that. Let's grab the Robotech footage. Here, that'll work. Yeah. I won't know the difference. But yeah, we'll use the bioship footage. What bioship? Yeah, that doesn't exactly describe what Rashenko said, but oh well. Anyway, so that is what we've done so far. Yeah, that's it so far. So memory card working? Testing. Yeah, we're going to do some more filming. Page 37. Seems to be working. I hope. Okay, yeah, making of. Note that in the script, it says it's supposed to be Mural and Sito, but the characters in it are discussing it like it's a Saurian lady and like a lizard and Sito. So it should be Tendi, who isn't really a Saurian, she's an Orion, but the ship is messing with them a little bit. So what's going on? So we're going to film it. So note that in the script it calls for them to be in a shuttlecraft. All of them crammed into a shuttle set would look really, really weird. So they're on their way to the shuttlecraft, and they're aware of the shit that's going outside. That's the only way this works. They're aware of the stuff going on outside, and they're like in the command bay. They're going to leave to go to the shuttle. They're not. They're at the shuttles. There are multiple shuttles. Can't actually show those. So there they are. Yeah. So next in part 2, that's coming up. I just finished part 1. So of the story. Well, if you put it all together, it's part 1. It's 48, page 48. Part 1. There's 96 pages in the movie. We're halfway through, basically. Here on Sunday. The tape is going to run out shortly. I'm gonna make some dinner. No. So yeah, we don't need to rush this all the way to the end. There's tomorrow. There's the next day. There's whatever. But we want to get at least the. We want to finish all the stories, get them all done, and then put them together and then prepare them for production. It is the 22nd. It is probably slightly unrealistic to say that this stuff will be out before Halloween. It will probably be out just after Halloween, so November. But we'll see. We'll see whether that's. I mean, it's already the 22nd, so 23rd tomorrow. There's 7 days, and it's Halloween. So yeah, we could probably get one episode out, maybe the pilot. But that would be pushing it probably if we rushed it. To do the ship stuff, the credits, the musical score, and all that stuff. Yeah, we still have to do sci-fi ship footage. There isn't much, but we have to do some. There's mainly for the Fearful Symmetry story with the space battle. We can almost use some of the footage from some of the stock footage actually of the ships from the other story. We almost could. I probably shouldn't though. Probably should redo all of that. Just make it kind of match because it won't. But yeah. So yeah, this alien ship set. Next is mainly there's a lot of the moon base talking to an alien, the Phoenix Par, the alien, the lizard alien guy. There's a lot of I forget what the guy's name is, but there's a lot of the Silurian guys stuff in here. Goofy lizard alien thing. The story kind of acknowledges it, yeah, ancient alien lizard people and all that stuff. It kind of acknowledges that. It's making fun of it a little bit. Because that, yeah, when we made, back in the day, it was just osmosis. Like, we don't necessarily believe in the whole thing, but, and of course not. But the idea of ancient civilizations that came before us and are long since wiped out by the Ice Age, that totally could have happened. There'd be nothing left of them. There'd be like some bones here and there and stuff like that. Maybe they were very natural and they didn't leave any carbon and stuff behind either. Maybe they picked up after themselves. Um, Distant Destinies, the original saga, also had it posited that aliens were like preservers, because of Star Trek, of course, came to Earth and found these groups of different hominids and stuff and took them to their planets. So they took them to their planets to raise them there, and then they came back as the Earth's distant cousins. It's the whole crux of the story. The Canary Space Saga that it's now a version of it is a little different. It's still in there. It's still in the DNA, but it's not supposed to be. There are key points that make it not Von Daniken and not those other guys and not the Ancient Aliens guys. The Ancient Aliens guys and Discalios and all those guys, they're obsessed with the premise of somehow aliens had to have built all the megastructures. No. I never said that in my stories. What it was is they visited Earth, and it was more like a Prime Directive thing. They watched them build the structures. They were watchers. They didn't actually do anything. Yeah, they didn't help humanity along, unless they had to in some cases. They didn't build the pyramids because that's no. People built the pyramids. To some extent in those ancient alien stories, as we explored in the Fallen Ones planet story, actually earlier in this series. So it's all part of that. It's part of that. Yeah. So this is another Earth where it's the 32nd century, similar to Discovery, except on this other Earth. But back on Cillian Earth or back in Starfleet Earth, it's 2405. So it's actually 2405. So there's like a weird, surreal sort of back and forth going on. There was a dark age of space, very similar to the Burn. However, we thought of ours before they did theirs long ago. It's part of the Planetcom saga and Distant Cousins and Distant Planets and Distant Journeys from way back in the 1990s. So Star Trek, years later in 2017, 2018, all that show, it's definitely first. But the idea of something like that happening is not exclusive to Distant Cousins either. The idea of a group of a society being wiped out and then starting over again, the spacefaring society type of thing, and a generation ship coming to rescue them, that kind of thing. That's all in the DNA of those other two stories as well. And it's conceivable that they could do what they're doing. And it's not so much that there are Mordic Watchers, yeah. More like Q-like Watchers, like sophisticated aliens that would just watch over humanity, like the Zoo hypothesis, more so than Dark Forest. Now, interestingly enough, the Dark Forest hypothesis is that don't seem to be any aliens, simply Alistair Reynolds and that kind of thing, which we read after doing Starcrackers, and then Space Vanguard sort of hinted back to it. We weren't ripping off Alistair Reynolds. He was just somebody that did the Dark Forest story. And there weren't any aliens. There didn't seem to be any aliens. There was something wiping out the other aliens in the galaxy when they get to a certain level. The Dark Forest. These aliens here aren't in a Dark Forest, though. They established it. No, there are other aliens out there. This other group is the humans on the planet might think they are in this particular story. But no, there are other aliens. There's like a green one and stuff like that. And in this story, the aliens are the crew from the Chimera that's assumed the roles of the android people on the planet and on the ship and on the space station. They're androids as well. They're being over there, and nobody questions it because the computers don't know that. Well, they know that it's probably not their crew. They know that it's somebody that's replaced their crew because you established early on that the Wessian discovers that the original crew is dead, the bridge crew, and Mahoney also discovers that the moon crew is dead. There was like one guy called Crater who's dead. I don't know if there was anybody else, but so they've assumed the roles of these two different groups in a conundrum type of thing. Let's fix it so that they can have first contact with this ship, because the ship is actually advanced. It's actually a cat level 2 or 3 ship, and they want to awaken the computer so that it's benevolent computer, and by playing the crew in their first contact, they hope that they can awaken the computer so that it doesn't kill them. I'm assuming that Chimera and crew could rescue them, beam them up, and they could just leave, and nothing would happen. But maybe, yeah, or implicit as a silly trek, and that they want to have it check it out. They want to see what's going on. So that's what's going on. Yeah, ancient aliens and stuff like that. Yeah. So as the author of Canary Space, the spinoff of kind of this story, kind of not though. The story's more boiled down to the basic elements of what it was. It's a rejected sequel to that series, in which they would have contact with the spacefaring aliens who was a rejected pilot that was rewritten as a silly trek because the Starship Locations. Sure. But yeah, so yeah, we're not going to do this angle in Distant Cousins, so we're not going to do it. So let's leave the rest of this pilot. Let's see what that's about. Yeah, the Silurian hypothesis, this goofy lizard thing, is that there was a lizard society that lived before people, and allegedly, according to weird conspiracy theories, they're still around. They're just in humanoid form because they're shapeshifters, apparently, or something, which is silly. There's a certain psychosis that makes people think they're being impostered. It's a psychosis, it's an imposter type. It's a form of psychosis. People think that their friends or whatever are lizards or shapeshifters, which made the Dominion on Deep Space Nine scary because they could literally be the imposters. Yeah, that was kind of fun. So there's a little Dominion in here, a little bit. I like that they kind of imply in this story that the Draconians are the lizard people, even though they're not supposed to be. Yeah, but we figure out what happened with them coming up, but the time, that part of the world, which makes a lot more sense. It's like, okay, it's a beginning of that word, but yeah, the ancient alien thing here, the goofy alien thing here, is that the aliens didn't. These aliens were taken away and raised in another part of the galaxy, and there was a signal that came out in this story, and from the critters that were left behind on the planet. They went to a planet called the Beginning. They would improvise their homeworld, and apparently they messed with it. They messed with the zoo over at that planet, and that caused them to come out to this planet, to this other Earth. It's a parallel Earth, so yeah. Which is a Hollywood version of parallel Earth because that, of course, the physics version of parallel universe, multiverse, and parallel Earth is quite a bit more constrained. Physics posits that yes, there could be other universes and other Earths on the other side of the galaxy, but you'll never reach them. So but Hollywood, if you want to have a story at all, you have to be able to reach them. So yeah, hyperdrive. But yeah, so yeah, you can reach them. They did a lot of those in the classic Trek. This is a very classic Trek type of story, it turns out. They would have done that. So they're assuming these roles to awaken the ship and the crew. The crew that's hypersleep is still is hypersleep. They're not dead. The command crew is dead on both ships. But yeah, they're gonna figure out how to revive them. That'll be cool. Or activate the alien or whatever. The alien is not much of a twist. You can kind of tell from the dialogue what's going to happen, but that's fine. Sito is married to a Cassans, but it's this version of Earth, not the version of Earth they're visiting. So it's not the same guy, and we don't know his first name. We never learned his first name in the story. Throw that in dialogue somewhere. Might be David. I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, it might be David the Second, Cassins. But yeah, so that's basically what's going on. The Silurian thing, which is goofy, they keep mentioning, would have been millions of years earlier. Dinosaurs and stuff. That would have definitely been erased. But no, Ice Age, an Ice Age society could have happened, and would just be gone. erased by the glaciers, just completely scrubbed. We wouldn't know. That's entirely possible, but it's not connected directly to Egypt and the pyramids. That's no. It's probably loosely connected to Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Those were the remnant of that group. They were still there. And the Stonehenge, maybe the Stonehenge too, maybe that too. But I think the Stonehenge is only 9,000 years old too. I don't think it's as old as Göbekli Tepe. Yeah, that was that cradle of that civilization at that time. Yeah. Although humanity came out of Africa and Upper Africa and Middle Africa and stuff like that, and spread all over the world several times. It wasn't just one migration, several. So the racist guys that think, oh, the Egyptians were incapable of building pyramids because they're not white. That's dumb. That's just racist. Also, we did come out of Africa, and actually the racist actually they went back and looked at the genomes and all that stuff, and they discovered that the part of us that makes us white guys Neanderthal a little bit, like 2 to 4%, that's a mutation. And the original groups were all black. So interestingly enough, they're actually the original race. So note that in the script, calls for them to be back in the meeting room, I guess on the station, but that doesn't make sense. So they're sort of in a peripheral area of the corpse room, the tomb that they found. These guys are in the tomb, and they're going to talk to Rashenko and them, who are on the ship. They've arrived on the alien ship, and there's other bodies just lying around on the ground. So they're in 2 different places on the ship. It's a visual gag going on. So pretty much close-ups or near close-ups. And so let's do it. So we got a scene pickup with Riker here. Riker Tom Cassins. It involves him talking about the other guy showing up and being the synth that fucked everything up. And he went dark on the other tape for some reason. So let's do him over again here. So what this is going to be is after the final log that you did yesterday, we jump hundreds of years into the future. Hundreds of years. Just to have like a post-credits sort of fun thing. Post-sequence fun thing. So this is a scene on the Chimera in the Fleet Museum in the year 3191. Action. It looks like we can actually start filming on. We have the alien set here, the alien command center, and we have the lunar command center. Bridges. Yeah, so let's do that. Don't show them too much. Just show the close-ups on them. So let's do this. Yeah, I kind of want to know where she is in this scene, actually. We could just keep going until we run out of tape and then look, I guess. Because, you could do that. But I did make an enormous pause right there to shoot the camera. So it is about 7:30 tonight, and I think we should do another 10 pages. It's not late. Do another 10 pages. We're on about page 60. Probably. Should be mostly the talk with the Silurians on the ship. Yeah. So, it is the 23rd. It's Monday. We're continuing production, starting on the top of page 55 of the story, the Distant Destinies, the story. Real brief here. Just thought I'd chime in here on the set. Visiting. So I think it's kind of funny that like that the drive to survive, the need to survive in the human race in the story. The whole reason for the meaning of life is that we're lab rats in space. We're like space bunnies, but more like lab rats. I think it's hilarious. So just thought I'd come in and say that. Yeah, I also, came from Africa first. Well, upper middle Africa, sort of. Yeah, so that means that all the white guys are mutations. All us white guys are mutations, which is funny. Also, we also have like these two higher aliens that are thousands of years old. Their species has kept these monolithic things, kind of like Arthur C. Clarke and Greg Bear and stuff like all the great authors. And Asimov with their android that cannot harm humanoids. Kind of the same idea. It's Asimov. So there's a lot of the classic guys. A little bit of Dune in there too. A little bit of Dune. But the thing about Dune with Frank Herbert was that he was obviously high as a kite. And he was like, you know what? Spice melange. It makes them have powers and psionic abilities. And the guy was probably up in the Oregon desert one day, and he came up with a story because he saw some nuns and thought they should be ninjas. That was the Bene Gesserit. And then he was like, oh, the jihad, that's a term Americans use to describe the Muslims. Even though technically a jihad, if you look it up, is an inner struggle, not an outer struggle. So we've been using that word wrong for 50 years or more. It's an inner struggle. If there's a group saying we're the jihad guys, then they're using it wrong. Even the bad guys are using it wrong. So maybe they've decided to use it wrong. But yeah. So yeah, the idea that and it kind of goes with the evolution and the other stuff as well. Yeah, so the premise of the story is that the aliens that engineered humanity, which is ballsier than what the Alien series did with what's his face with Ridley Scott, Alien, Prometheus, and all that, by saying like no, there was no singular purpose or higher intelligence. It was merely that the aliens created us to see what would happen, which is hilarious. Yeah, there's no higher purpose. They just wanted to make us to see what would happen. They're just curious. And, Anyway, back to the show. Okay, October 22nd, Sunday. New footage on the set of the movie, the Distant Destinies movie of Star Trek Locations. No. So yeah, we're on the set of this finishing up this story of 72. So we have 50s sci-fi / 70s 80s sci-fi theme. We have a sort of like the jokes are written by a 16-year-old. They're not. They're later, but they're cribbed from some of my earlier stuff a long time ago. It's more of a silly track, more of a Star Trek. The backstory of the Star Magen and the other original character from the other story was cribbed from the backstory of the Star Trek people to begin with, and then put in the distant cousin story, and then brought back to this one. The idea of two crewmen being trapped on a shuttle or a planet where they decide to get together because they think they're going to die. That would be a really screwed up backstory for a couple of people to have. Well, Mahoney and Crass and Sito and Locarno were on that Cardassian prison planet from 2371 to 2375 when they were rescued. So they probably thought they were going to die several times and ended up with each other. So that could be what he's referring to, or some other event later. But it's before the Chimera A, and that's why he has issues. And that's why he misses her and all that, because apparently, it's like, no, that doesn't happen. But in this case, no Cardassians. But in this case, we have this sort of backstory has never been explored in the series. Decided to go there and have it be that Sito, or have it be that Mahoney, right in here in the scene, says, he's mentioning to the two stoner people, probably because he knows they're stoned, and if they mentioned it off the ship, nobody would pay any attention to it. So he's kind of breaking character a little bit to mention that, by the way, Sito and I were intimate once, or maybe twice. Maybe more than once. Oh yeah. So yeah. But yeah. So that was the backstory of that character. He knew her from before. It's kind of in the books, in the Cillian realms. If you read the books, you'll be, oh yeah, that's kind of in there. Yeah. And the Star Magen was the character in the distant cousins version. The rewrite that never got filmed. And this was going to be their sort of a pseudo pilot. So, yeah, and the idea of a bad guy being sort of a joke is Planetcom, pretty much. He's not really. He's an antagonist. He's not a villain. He has a voice that's similar to Truman Capote crossed with a lizard Cobra Commander guy. Yeah, but he's also clearly a spoof of somebody from the church. That Kate Terror character, who doesn't really sound like that, but if she decided to lisp, she kind of would. But yeah, it's not her really. It's just funny. But yeah. Yeah. So there's a bunch of nods that no one would get otherwise. But yeah, the idea that the joke, the Cito there was, the joke there was that the gag there was that they knew. The stoners were like, oh yeah, she told us about that. Yeah, it's not scuttlebutt on the ship. Everybody knows but you. We keep it a secret for 20 years. It turns out I didn't have to, because, yeah. Yeah. Doesn't think anything of it. It's completely nonchalant. After all, it was straight sex. It wasn't weird sex like a Kazon having sex with a Techite. It wasn't weird enough, so they just didn't care. It wasn't shocking. So they're like, oh, yeah, they did it. Oh well. A long time ago. Now she's married. She's gone on to her own life, and we don't know what he's gonna get with, if anybody. We don't know if he. I think in that other timeline, he does end up with somebody. I think. But yeah, yeah, he's not the type really. He's not an incel. He's not involuntarily celibate. He clearly has been around. It's implied that on some of the missions he's been around. It's been implied that he's possibly been with Crass a few times, possibly with Tindy. But it took 16 years for somebody to be with Crass again. So. Yes, but 16 years. Not sure who she shagged. Yeah, as a shipping story, relationship story, I think she shagged Tindy. I think that's it. So there you go. That's what happened. Tindy said, "Well, why not try her out?" But you know. Okay. It's probably Tindy. Be my guess. It could have been the doctor, but it was probably Tindy. As a shipping story. There, start shipping Crass and Tindy's porn. No, don't do that. Okay, we're continuing with filling. Page 86. So their guild navigator, Oladoon, is Stuffies. That's funny. Anyway, so yeah, so we're gonna film. Yeah. So this is the Arboretum scene, and this has really not changed too much from the script. Originally it was Corey shows up. Get that out. Stupid. Get that. She shows up to help them, and then the doctor, then Tabby. But no, Tendy's a doctor, so doctor in training, so medical officer. She could handle it. So yeah. So we have a scene with the stoners, and then we cut to them arriving. They really didn't answer what was on the file, but maybe they kind of did surreptitiously because of what they said when they translated it. So yeah, like a typical Arthur C. Clarke story, they're not actually going to find the nature of humanity. Anyway, so yeah, here we go. But I want to be... Okay, so now it's centered. Yeah. Okay, so just completed principal photography on the Distant Destinies, the second movie. The pilot starts it. It's a 2-part episode of the movie. This is the finale. So we had the ultimate penultimate episode, and it got to the end of the episode with the Cillian Earth, and then decided, that Distant Cousins, Distant Destiny story is never going to get shot as a Distant Destiny story, so just rewrite it as a Star Trek and include it in Chimera, because it could easily be a Chimera episode. It's a little too silly. So there are serious moments, but it's silly. It's an homage to the classic sci-fi writers. It's an homage to Clark and Asimov and Bova and Bear, and mainly Clark and Asimov. There's a little bit of Bova in there, a little bit of Bear in there, I should say. Whoever thought of that? I think Greg Bear and Bova were the ones that thought of the Neanderthal thing. Anyways, yeah. Well, a lot of people have done that. Ancient alien kind of thing. Yeah, the idea of characters being enlightened through some other means, because it was written in the 60s when people were on drugs. And yeah, it's clearly what influenced stuff like Dune and the Spice Melange. I mean, come on. Obviously a drug. But this is not cool, it's just that's what they did. But yeah, they... and I wanted to do this story also a nod to Andover, kind of in the background, curiously through the two stoners that are in the story. But nothing bad happens to them, unlike in a Rogan movie where something bad will happen, or Cheech and Chong movie where something odd will happen. No, I just wanted them to have like an adventure with the crew, and they're in the background. And at the end, something gross happens, but it doesn't really kill them. It just messes them up a little bit. So something does happen, but they're fine. But yeah, so that wasn't the only thing. I wanted to have the crew, some of them playing android synths and stuff like that, and they're trying to figure out a mission. And the story fit well with that, the android synths mission thing. So fine. Yeah. So we just wrapped production just now, just before 9 in the evening. I did 45 pages in a day. That's insane. And now we have no written material. We've done all the written material. Now all we have to do is put all this together. It is the 23rd. It is unlikely that all of this will be ready by Halloween. That's impossible. However, the pilot might be. So we'll see. We can put the pilot together more out. But yeah, it'll mainly be a series in November, and we'll air we'll put together each episode and air it. We have to go and do the effects, the ship stuff. Fortunately, there's not very much ship stuff. In fact, most of the Emmett Till fighting the bad guys could be technically footage we've already shot, from last season, from 2 seasons ago. We had a lot of footage of the Till being shot at. We could just use that. But probably not. We probably will reshoot that because, yeah, as the ship model won't match the newer models. But yeah, we could easily do that. So yeah, the whole series come to an end. You're done with the series. Well, what are you doing from there? That type of stuff. We did answer a few things that were burning questions. What happened with Mahoney and them and Sito and them when they were on that planet prison? Did stuff happen between them? Yes, stuff happened between them, but stuff also happened between him and Crass. So other things happened, and at the end of the story, we get to meet up with her husband. She got married in the finale. Between the finale and this movie, the movie takes place like 6 months, 3 or 4 months later. Yeah, it's like November, December, January, February. 4 months later, got married, and that's integral to the story. The story's about this mysterious Cassins and Benton character are written into the story. And so we have that, and he appears at the end, and then there's this cute little thing, and it wasn't in the script, but I had to throw it in there. That Crass shows up, and everybody gets a little bit of a promotion in the movie version at the end. That'd be cool. And Mahoney is dating Crass at the end of the series, the way out the end of the movie. So yeah, let's that's fun. So yeah, everything is all right. And Mahoney was drinking throughout the series, and he went to the Space 12 Steps program between then the finale and the movie. So the movie is sober. So yeah, it's funny. So yeah, the Space 12. Yeah, there was going to be other ideas and stories launched around in the thing that we just never did and didn't really think out and didn't want to do. Streamlining stuff. Watch the different fan people that did different things. The Red Letter Media guys posited how to do a proper thing. So did Steve Shives and his friend Jason, and Jesse Gender, and all those other YouTubers that have way more hits than we do on YouTube. All speculated on what's a good Star Trek story. And there's others as well that did. But yeah, so the key to this season of 10 episodes, a couple of two-parters and 8 one-parters, and this movie, which is an additional 2-parters, really, 2-parter on the end. So that makes it a total of 12 episodes, if you count the movie. Yeah, you get the movie right afterwards, so that's awesome. So you don't need to wait. It's sort of like Generations was like 6 months after Star Trek: The Next Generation ended. There's somebody with a press kit, a computer press kit for Star Trek that was advertising on YouTube. And like, the hell is that? They didn't have that back then. They didn't have a computer press kit. They didn't have computer press kits until computers had press kits. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know why I ramble about that. But no, that doesn't exist. Person's been lied to. Anyway, yeah, they were written back then. But yeah, the Next Generation was yeah. But yeah, so you have a curious story where in the movie version, this is the movie, where you've a planet where they have a secret thing that's classified about the nature of humanity and the aliens and all that. The story does flat out say that ancient aliens did not create humanity directly. Ancient aliens did not build pyramids and stuff like that. Ancient aliens were just there watching and being like a Starfleet. It's a zoo. Earth is a zoo. Kind of, that's one of the hypotheses. Yeah, and so this group of Starfleet people beam down to this duplicate of Earth, which has a similar group going on, and assumes the role of the androids and assumes the role of the crew of an abandoned space station. And they go to the Ark ship that's showing up, and they're going to influence it, intercept it, and beam in and play the androids that the computer knows about on the ship. Not sure how the computer would do that, but yeah, just go with it. Also walking this morning, I realized that I was actually kind of doing the Quester tapes, which was another Roddenberry story. And Data is a Quester tapes robot, Quester android, with a little Asimov thrown in because he has the 3 laws of robotics. But yeah, so it kind of is the Quester planet, sort of. Earth 2, a little bit of Andromeda thrown in there. And reading Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, not Stargate Andromeda. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. I don't need to ramble on too much about that. I mean, it is what it is. It's fun. It's a space story. In the 70s and 80s sci-fi stories, like 2001 and stuff like that, and Alistair Reynolds in the late 90s, early 2000s, and Kim Stanley Robinson in the late 90s, they tended to think of existential stories as sort of, and Clark, more or less Clark, with Rama and 2001 and the sequels, of which the sequels of Rama are not that good. Gentry Lee didn't know what he was doing. But yeah, the idea of an existential advanced alien race that's watching the zoo Earth around, the Sentinel kind of thing going on, the monolith or whatever. Interesting idea. Uh, but you never actually figure out in those stories what the answer is, because they're never ballsy enough to do it. So I figured, well, you have a story that's where no one had dared go before. You have a kind of a cool story implying this creature, and that they've got to make in contact and awaken. But it turns out it's more of a Star Trek kind of ending, with a little silly Trek thrown in. And it's also kind of a Dune ending, because you have the engine room being... the engine ship is piloted by stuffed animals, stuffies, which is funny, little miniature stuffies. And it's a silly Trek. It's got to be a little silly Trek in there. Yeah, and also we give a new place for Peppermint to hang out. We make him the temporary new guild navigator for the ship. Peppermint has a place to go, so right on. Yeah. But yeah. So, sure, it's fine. It works. There's a hippy dippy scene in there that goes into something similar to what Starscream said in one of the All Transformers Smush stories. There's a line in the story about racism, race relations, and critical race theory. Kind of basically says, in a nutshell, if you're all the same species, it doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are, or anything like that. We're all the same species. Yeah, color should not have any barometer. Race should not have any barometer. We're all the same species. So that's an interesting thing to say that. Because we are all the same species. The human race is all the same species. We can reproduce with other of the, if we were different species, we couldn't. So technically, biologically, we're the same species. As for the gender thing, or biology thing, or that, why should that matter? It shouldn't really. It's no. Well, I mean, yeah. Why should that matter? Why are people butthurt about whether somebody wants to identify as a boy or girl? Who cares? It's not going to affect you in any way, so nobody cares. If that's what you think, then that's what you think. That's fine. Okay. But yeah. And in their brain, they think they're not a certain thing, so it's fine. It's not hurting anybody. It really isn't. So yeah, it's kind of the thing, the message of the story. And then their overall arcing thing is once they reveal the space message, it is a little Clarkian, because what reveals the space message does a little bit of the bait and switch twist a little bit, the story. I'm not going to give it away. You have to watch the episode. But yeah, the message is this creature, the preserver demigod thing pops out, and everybody's freed. Which is something Clark would not have done. He would have been like, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'll show Dave Bowman in the hotel room, and he on the alien thing, and he's like aging and stuff. Or is that the other guy? I think it's Bowman. And it's like, okay, yeah, he's. But I won't go any further than that, because yeah. Whereas this story tries to answer the existential question of existence by saying indirectly, well, humanity's the species that it is because of mutation and environment and earth changes and stuff like that. And that's why we're what we are. And that's why another comment was saying, another comment that I made earlier was that they actually, us white people, we're not, we're a mutation of the other genes from Africa, for mutations. We don't need. But the point of the story is that the sort of pseudo androids are kind of the preservers, or kind of like beyond the queue more. But they do give a hopeful nod to humanity, very Star Trek like thing, and they say that eventually humans will become like that. If humans keep going out in its galaxy and evolving stuff, they will become advanced, and they'll go beyond that 2 or 3% of their brain that separates them from genius. Just like the apes are 1 or 2% similar to us, different from us, and that little percentage in there is just what separates us from apes. Which is why you don't want to bang a chimp, because you could end up getting a kid with it. You don't want that. A humanzee, that's gross. Yeah. In the Starcracker saga, there were no aliens. It was a dark forest. That's what they call a dark forest. I didn't know what that was called in the 90s when we wrote the story, Mark Scars and I. But the dark forest. Okay, there aren't any aliens, but they make the aliens by the genetics aliens, which would be harder than actually finding the aliens. But then it was sort of retconned a little more so that the Techites and the Termarellians and some of the other ones were actually aliens, but they just didn't find them yet or something. Yeah, there were like devastated aliens and there were other ones. So this story also has a little bit of that. The villain is a little silly, but then again he's a Silly Track villain. It is a remake of Planetcom 2007 in many ways, but yeah, less a comedy and more serious, trying to be serious sci-fi until the stuffies show up in the engine room. But yeah, yeah, and that's the recreated. That's the bird guy, the pterodactyl, transtexual pterodactyl. That we got a new one at the toy show, and if we put it in the movie, but it's a newer one. So it's a different guy. Yeah, the voice of the lizard guy is an imitation of somebody from church. More so than it is an imitation of Truman Capote or imitated the late Truman Capote, or it kind of is, or like Cobra Commander or something, or Daffy Duck or something. But yeah. Anyway, but it's all in fun though. She doesn't really have a lisp like that. But yeah. Yeah, well, it's a lizard, so a lizard would, well, you go, it etches like a lizard, because it's a lizard. Yeah, I don't buy the Silurian hypothesis of millions of years ago that thing with the lizards. It makes no sense. It's funny to contemplate, but yeah. I don't think that the dromasaurs and raptors left the Earth after a major society they built millions of years ago. It'd be kind of cool, but no, they didn't. But, be cool, but no, they didn't. It's probably more or less Land of the Lost, and there's like an underground society somewhere, which is still silly, but more realistic than aliens or something. Not in the core of the Earth. That's stupid. Probably just out in the middle of the Congo, in the middle of nowhere or something, or the Amazon. There's probably some weird city built by lizards. It'd be kind of cool, but yeah, you're not going to have space alien ones. That wouldn't make any sense. But I wrote about space alien ones. Yeah, and aliens uplifting them. And back then, they didn't call it uplifting, but that's what it was. When you take an animal species and you make it a humanoid animal species, it's called uplifting. All these new terms for everything. I just wrote stories that were fun. Also, there wasn't much internet in it because I figured they wouldn't have that. Then they didn't have that yet when the original story was written. Well, in 2015, of course, they did for 15 years or so, or 20 years or so. But and you couldn't really have the internet in space, so you'd have like hyperspace radio or something, like Star Trek does. A ridiculous hyperspace radio where they could contact an entire other planet in another solar system and say, oh, Starfleet Command says this. That's bullshit. You can't do that. But in Silly Trek, they kind of can. But I did cut out that one scene in that Deep Space Nine episode where they contacted them through the wormhole from across the galaxy. Oops, I can't have them say that. That wouldn't work. Yeah, that's across the galaxy. That's not going to work. That's no. I think I did that on Deep Space Nine a few times. Anyway, but yeah, that doesn't make sense. So yeah, so there's my rant about the finale and a recap sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know if we'll have a full series recap. I think what we'll do will be kind of fun on the regular channel because the regular channel isn't as prevalent as the Trek channel. We could do a parody of the Ready Room and have the Not Ready Room and meet the Star Trek people. Could do something like that. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure if we'll do that. We gave you the Cousins movie, but Not sure whether we want to do that necessarily. It'd be a little weird. Maybe just sort of a, yeah. Because then it's kind of an episode again. It's like if you bring the figures back and have them stand around, it's another episode. I think it's kind of funny that in the final scene, the last line is said by Tam and Kestra, and they're standing next to the bad guy, dude from the Evergreen clan. Somehow he's there. Yeah, I wonder what that means. Probably nothing, just that they saved him. Somebody did. The robots saved him. Oh well. Dude. They came full circle, you see. Well, that's it.